In this tutorial, we're going to build a fully customizable calendar in SwiftUI. You'll learn how to display a clean monthly calendar view, how to switch between different selection styles like single, range, and multiple, and how to control what dates the user can or cannot select. We'll also add useful options, like showing extra days from previous and next months, and blocking past dates when needed. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a complete SwiftUI calendar that's flexible, drop-able time, ready for real apps. Before we start, I'll first show you the full code. This will make it easier for you to understand how everything connects, and also help you reuse it later in your own project. Then we'll break it down part by part and explain each section in a simple and clear way. And if you have any suggestions to make this tutorial even better, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and keep improving the content for you. An enum is a way to group multiple related options together. Here, we use an enum called calendar selection mode to let the user choose what kind of calendar they want. The first option is single, which means the calendar will allow selecting only one date at a time, a simple clean style for quick date picking. Multiple. This allows the user to select several separate dates, not just one, and not a full range. It's useful when someone wants to pick specific days, like choosing favorite dates, setting reminders, or marking busy days across the month. Range. This lets the user select a start date and an end date, and the calendar highlights everything in between. It's perfect for situations like booking a hotel stay, selecting a vacation period, or planning an event that spans multiple days. When we create the calendar, we can decide how it should look. By using the Shows Overflow Dates option, we choose whether we want to only show the days of the current month, or also include the extra days from the previous and next months to fill the grid. If this is set to true, the calendar will show those extra days, but in a lighter, gray color, so it's clear they don't belong to the current month. This gives the calendar a more complete look and helps the user understand the full layout without empty spaces. The Allows To Select option controls whether the user is allowed to tap and select dates on the calendar. If it's set to true, the user can freely tap on any date and make selections. But if it's false, the calendar will block the user from selecting past dates. So they can only pick from today and future dates. Past days will appear dimmed and won't respond to taps. This is useful when we want to prevent users from choosing days that are already over, like when booking something in the future. Generate Month Grid. This function builds the full grid of days to display in the calendar. First, it finds the full date range for the current month. Then it finds the first visible week and the last visible week. So the calendar always starts from the beginning of the first row and ends at the last row. Finally, it goes through each day in that range, one day at a time, and returns a list of all the dates to show in the calendar grid. This is how we make sure the calendar layout is always complete and clean. This function chooses the color for each date in the calendar. The color depends on a few things. Is the date selected? Is it the start or end of a range? Is it part of the current month? Let's break it down. If we're using range selection mode, if the date is the start or end of the selected range, we return a custom highlight color, custom color. If the date is somewhere inside the selected range, we use the default main color, color primary, black or white. If the date is not selected at all, we show it in normal color only if it belongs to the current month. Otherwise, we show it in gray if we're using single or multiple selection. If the date is selected, show custom color. If it's not selected, we check if it's in the current month. If yes, show normal color. If not, show gray. This function checks if a specific date should be shown as selected in the calendar. How it works is depends on the calendar selection mode. If the mode is single or multiple, we look in the selected date set. If the date is already there, that means the user selected it, so we return true. If the mode is range, we check if the date is part of the selected range. First, we look at the start date. If there's no start, nothing is selected, so we return false. Then we check the end date. If both start and end are selected, we return true only if this date is between them. If only the start date is selected, we return true only if this is the same day as the start. This function is what tells the calendar which days should look selected on the screen based on how the user interacted with it. Handle selection, single mode. Now let's look at what happens when the user taps on a date in single selection mode. This part of the code checks if the tap date is already selected. If it is, we remove it from the selection. That means the user is unselecting the same day like a toggle. Multiple. In this mode, the user can select more than one day at the same time. We first check if the tap date is already in the selected date set. If it is, that means the user wants to unselect it, so we remove it from the list. But if it's not already selected, we add it to the set. This lets the user tap on different days and collect as many as they want. Each tap either adds the date or removes it. It works like a checklist. You can freely turn each day on or off, one by one. This is useful when the user wants to mark several important days across the month, like choosing work shifts, personal events, or reminders. Now let's explain how range selection works. This mode lets the user pick a start date and an end date, and the calendar highlights all the days in between. We begin by checking if we already have a start or end date. If there's no start date, or if we already have both a start and an end, then we reset and set the tap date as the new start. The range starts fresh. But if we already have a start and no end, then we check if the user tapped the same day again. If they did, we clear the selection. But if the tap day is different from the start, we choose the earlier date as the new start and the later date as the new end. That way, the range always goes from the earlier day to the later one. This function adds a visual background behind selected dates in the calendar. It first checks if the date is selected. If it's not selected, we don't show anything. If it is selected, we look at the current selection mode. Each mode shows the background in a different way. In range mode, we use different shapes depending on the position of the date. If the date is the start of the range, we show a shape with rounded corners on the left side. If it's the end of the range, we show a shape with rounded corners on the right side. If the date is somewhere in the middle, we show a simple rectangle with a soft gray background. This helps show that all those days are connected in a range. In single and multiple modes, we use a rounded rectangle shape. It looks like a pill and fits nicely around the number. This shape makes selected days stand out clearly. Each style is chosen to help the user understand what they selected and where that date sits, at the start, in the middle, or at the end. This function checks if a date is in the past and not allowed to be selected. We start by getting today's date, but we remove the time part. We also remove the time part from the date we want to check. That way, we're comparing full days, not hours or minutes. Then we check two things. First, if the setting allows toSelect is turned off. Second, if the date is before today. If both are true, we return true. That means the date is in the past and should be blocked. This helps us prevent users from selecting days that are already over, especially when we only want to allow future selections. We start with config. This holds the calendar settings. For example, what selection mode we want, and if we should show overflow dates. We use this to control how the calendar looks and behaves. Next displayed month, this keeps track of the current month that the calendar is showing. It starts with today's date. When the user scrolls or changes the month, this value updates. Then selected dates. This stores all the dates selected by the user. It's used only in single and multiple selection modes. We use a set to avoid duplicates. Next selected range. This keeps the start and end of the selected range. It's used only in range mode. When both are set, we highlight all the dates in between. Then we have allows toSelect. This decides if the user is allowed to select past dates. We use it in the logic to block or allow tapping on old days. And finally, calendar. This gives us access to the system calendar. We use it to compare dates, add months, and work with date components. It handles all the logic behind the scenes. This line shows the names of the weekdays. It uses a custom view we already built in a previous tutorial. It shows just the first three letters, like mon, to, wed. If you want to learn how to create it, you can watch that tutorial. This line creates all the dates we need to show in the calendar. It calls a function named generateMonthGrid. That function returns a list of dates covering the whole visible month. This includes extra days from the start and end of the month. We use this list to fill the calendar grid. This line creates the grid layout for the calendar. We use Lazy by Grid to arrange the days in rows and columns. We create 7 columns, one for each day of the week. Each column is flexible, so it fills the available space evenly. The spacing between rows is set to 6 points. This checks if the date belongs to the current month. It helps us show only the days we want to display clearly. Dates from other months will look different or be hidden. This line checks if we should show the date. We show it if it's part of the current month, or if shows overflow dates is set to true. This lets us display extra days from the previous or next month. If the date is not in the current month and overflow is off, we don't show anything. But we still keep the space using a clear color with a fixed height. This keeps the calendar layout balanced. First, we check if the date is selected by calling sDateSelected. This tells us if the user has picked this day. Then we check if the date is the start of a selected range. We compare it with the range's start date. If there's no start date, we use the default old date to avoid errors. Next, we check if the date is the end of the range. We compare it with the range's end date. If there's no end, we use a far future date. We need these checks to show the correct highlight and shape for each day. We add a small circle under the number to show the current day. It only appears if the date is today. This helps the user quickly see where they are in the calendar.